That's a bingo! Is that the way you say it? That's a bingo.
You just say bingo.
Bingo! How fun!
All right, we're back. That's a Bingo podcast. It is Monday. Crushed it. Monday, August 31st, when we're recording this. I was totally in a pretzel because I'm always confused as to whether to say Monday, August 31st, because we are recording and live streaming this to anyone watching on YouTube or Twitter, Periscope, whatever it is. Confused to say that, or Tuesday, September 1st, which is where we'll be releasing the audio of this to the streaming platforms. What do you think? Matt Pine, my co-host.
Matt Pine here. I do believe it's probably best to say Tuesday, September 1st, but hey, there's going to be some people on YouTube, on Twitter, so no harm, no foul.
Okay, so it's Tuesday, September 1st. My name is Jake Luke. I am your other host. I just introduced you to Matt Pine, my guy over there, wearing a beautiful blue quarter zip you got there. Is that the Gonia or LL Bean?
We got the LL Bean here.
Okay. I like it. I'm an LL
Keeping
Bean.
it fashionable.
I've got a LL Bean long sleeve polo that's all gray. I'm a big fan. I can wear it on the golf course. I can wear it to the office. Haven't really had to do that for a while, thankfully. But I'm a fan of what LL Bean does. I've actually been to the original LL Bean store up in Maine.
Sick brag.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a brag, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think this was going to divert to an LL Bean discussion, but I'm all here for it. Very durable. I think we should be lining up for a sponsorship pretty soon.
Yeah, we definitely should, especially with all this free pub that we're giving them here for our millions of listeners that we have too. It seems like it's a good deal for them. They're kind of making out like bandits here.
Yeah, been a fan since a grade schooler. You know, the backpacks worked out, and good return policy from what I understand. But did want to obviously talk about some lighter stuff before we get onto some somber stuff. The passing of Chadwick Boseman over the weekend, totally out of the blue, totally shocking, extremely sad. He was only 43 years old and passed away from colon cancer.
Yeah, man, very sad, strange sort of story that we had leak out. What was it on Saturday night? Sunday night?
I believe so. Saturday, yeah.
Okay. So it came out Saturday night, like around midnight. I was in the middle of a rewatch. We're going to talk about a Nightcrawler. Pretty engrossed by that movie. Second rewatch I've done of it in the last couple months. Wanted to add it to the list, so I got it in there. But that sort of took me aback. I had to pause the movie for a little bit and kind of scroll Twitter and see what was going on, because it just came out that he passed of cancer, and it was not at all public knowledge that he was sick. He had managed to keep it secret for over the 4 years since his diagnosis back in 2016. And, we'll get into it. I wasn't super into his movies. I don't think I've ever really seen anything he's starred in at the very least. But I was aware of, the fact that he is a cultural icon to a lot of people, to the Black community, and specifically for some of the iconic roles that he did, and just seems like an all-around good guy. So very sad to lose a young guy like that, early 40s, I think 43 or so. It seemed like he had a lot of life left in him, but he definitely did the best that he could with the time that he had.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the short run that he had. It was kind of started off in 2013 with 42, where he played Jackie Robinson. Obviously, the pinnacle of his career came with Black Panther. One of the highest grossing movies ever, 1.3 billion. But I think you can put all that aside and just look at him, the person, and see, everything that he did. He went to St. Jude's Hospital. He visited the kids there, all while going through chemo. So what a special person.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all those stories came out about all the stuff that he had been doing, and some of the stuff came out retrospectively about the people kind of poking at him for his like weight loss and stuff. It's a sad story in that respect. And it's one that, it was going around Twitter a lot, but it's just one of those things where don't judge people, kind of be aware that everyone's going through something different. And obviously with him, it was something that was not only mental, but physical, just absolutely going through the ringer while he was doing all these different iconic movies, Black Panther, The Five Bloods. The guy was just working like an absolute maniac. And managed to get some really iconic roles in there, like I mentioned just before he passed. So yeah, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, and I think we'll be talking a little bit about it on with our guest here in a few minutes. But yeah, like you said, just meant so much to the Black community, film community. He was as short as his career lasted. It was that special and that impactful.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like you mentioned, we're going to be having a special guest on. It's Kristen Maldonado from MTV Social Media. She does a little bit of film, TV critic type stuff. Just a pop culture wizard. So she's going to be hopping on with us, and we're going to be talking some more Chadwick with her. But in the meantime, what do we got to talk about here, bud?
Well, I think you already alluded to it a little bit with your rewatch of Nightcrawler.
Yeah, definitely. So talking what we've been watching, that whole deal. Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal, 2014. You had just watched this, I think, for the first time recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and we don't have to, rehash it too much. We already talked about it a little bit, but yeah, holds up. I think I gave it a 9.3. Sort of that modern day take on a Taxi Driver type of movie, but I think it even, looking back on some of the themes and stuff, I think it even goes deeper than that in some other ways. Like for me, Taxi Driver is a movie about Travis, this guy who's kind of losing his mind, and I think that's sort of what Nightcrawler is about. But I think the main character Lou is more representative of other ideas than he is just a lone person kind of going nuts.
Yeah, I think we're both kind of on the same page here with, pointing back to Taxi Driver. It was a 9.0 for me. Gyllenhaal is, I gotta say, it's his best, role he's had ever. Yeah, I mean, I'm really attracted to these type of movies, even if they are kind of a bummer, kind of a downer. I do like the motifs going on there and how they reflect society. So yeah, I've only seen it once, but really 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen it probably 3 times at this point, and I agree. And I'm usually not always all the way in on movies like this. Like I said, I've been avoiding Joker because I just
yeah.
I didn't need to go see it in theaters and have that just like ruin my day or whatever. But I'll see it at some point. I saw this, but I think this is kind of stands alone in some ways. It's not as sort of downtrodden as some of those other movies. Still very stylish, makes LA look like an interesting if sort of empty place at times. Yeah, darker mood, but there are some things that kind of make it more of a fun hang than some of those other types of movies.
Yeah, agreed there. One I've been watching in the past week, All the President's Men, got rave reviews. I heard nothing but good things. This is one of the best political dramas ever, and it definitely held up. And we even got into it a little bit on Twitter about 70s movies versus 90s movies, which I'm sure we will have the debate at some point, maybe next episode or so. But this is obviously surrounding Watergate, and it's basically about the 2 reporters who covered it, broke the story, and really eventually, because of their work and their research, basically took down the president. And just phenomenal. It's one of the best political dramas I've ever seen.
Yeah, I need to check it out. I watched Frost Nixon recently, which I think there's some comparison there, not totally, but kind of the same era. And
it's really similar to Spotlight, actually.
Yeah, okay, so Spotlight, and then I do know a little tidbit, one of my favorite hidden gems, Shattered Glass, that I got you to check out. I know that was a big inspiration for Shattered Glass, and the I forget who directed it, but I know Tom Cruise was a producer on that, and they made the crew watch All the President's Men before they made that movie. They must have watched it like 1 million times.
Yeah, definitely can draw some parallels to Shattered Glass. All those journalism movies are, right up my alley, and I'm sure yours as well. We're not journalists per se, but we're bloggers. So we
speak for yourself.
Okay, Big J over here.
Oh yeah.
All right. But it was suspenseful. It was intense. Robert Redford. I said this in my tweet. I totally see where Brad Pitt gets his mannerisms from, his the way he delivers dialogue, and Dustin Hoffman on quite the run there in the 70s, I will say.
And he was in Star Wars too, so I mean, just a great one for him, right?
Exactly.
Little Seinfeld reference for you there. What is it streaming to?
It is on HBO Max.
Oh, okay. So I have a little bit of an announcement to make.
Oh boy.
I have HBO Max.
Woo!
I hopped onto it, did the little free trial thing, and I got into it mainly because I wanted to check out a little Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown.
Okay.
Haven't watched that all the way through. Big fan of Anthony Bourdain, so definitely wanted to check that out. I'm a couple episodes into that, And now that I have it, I guess I'll be checking out our boy Redford.
Yeah, big Bourdain guy as well. I've seen, I think, 5 or 6 seasons of Parts Unknown. But yeah, HBO Max is going to be really good for you. I think it's probably where I watch 80% of my movies, so you will have no shortage.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I've been looking for more of that. Maybe starting to exhaust the available to Netflix catalog, at least for the critically acclaimed ones. Having Prime is kind of a crapshoot because sometimes they'll be available, sometimes they're not. You can rent anything on there, which is great because it's only a couple bucks. It's kind of like whatever. But yeah, HBO Max, glad to be on there. Glad to be, one of the elites, just like you now, and I can really expand my repertoire.
I appreciate that. High praise. So a couple other ones I've seen, A Serious Man, Coen Brothers movie.
What'd you think?
I was not a fan. It was really dull, and I get the entire. It's similar to Fargo actually, where it's just like the power of
kind of the selling point.
Yes, in a sense. I think like the wrath of God is a big sticking point. I give it a 7.8. It's a movie that I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch at some point because I kind of felt like distracted while I was watching it. But to
be fair, I feel like you say that about every movie, though. But
yeah, something like that. Yeah. Did not hold my attention. And come on, Coen Brothers. But to their point, there were like no actors of note that I knew in the movie. I think that was very much intentional. But take it or leave it.
So I think, and I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but I think it's supposed to be a little bit of inspiration for Fargo season 3, the show. So we talk about how the Coen Brothers movies kind of play into it. And like I said, season 3, I like it just fine. It's not as good as the first 2. And you're going to be watching it pretty soon here to talk about for this show and for the 4th. So I'm sure that'll probably play into it just a little bit. But like I said, I don't know.
And another one I checked out was the longest movie title ever, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford.
I'm curious to get your take on this one.
I really love this one. This is not, thought of in the probably top 5, maybe top 8 episode or movies from Brad Pitt. In my opinion, it might have been his best acting performance. Casey Affleck, who, probably is in the shadow of his younger brother, but really broke out in Manchester by the Sea. He was phenomenal in this one as well.
You didn't love his iconic performance in Oceans?
I did. I think James Caan kind of stole the show there, but he was fine. He was the balloon boy.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of those movies that you watch it and then you want to go research it and look at the history. And
James Caan or Scott Caan, by the way?
Oh, Scott Caan. How dare I?
Who could forget that hair just piled up a mile high? Scott Caan like 5'7", and his hair is just flying all over the place.
High and tight.
As a guy who's, my hair isn't great at this point, a little bit of hair privilege by Scott Caan, but I am a taller gentleman. Not as tall as you, of course, but
of course.
It's nice. You're taller than you would think in person. I've said that.
It's been said many times on this podcast, in case you didn't already know. But yeah.
Check. How tall are you?
6'3".
Okay. How much do you weigh, if you don't mind sharing?
$160 so.
So this is turning into a little Dan Patrick Show bit where they the guests come on, they say their height and weight, and then they ring a bell. We don't have sound effects yet. I'm looking into getting a Roadcaster, pretty expensive. Get off my back. But that is where I would ring a bell if we were on the Dan Patrick Show.
Feel like I'm getting a physical over here. But
in these uncertain times, you want to get your health checked.
I'm doing okay, buddy. And then last one I want to talk about was A Bronx Tale.
Love Bronx Tale.
Suggested by my other podcast co-host, Zach. Really enjoyed this one. I kind of had, I don't know why, but I kind of had low expectations. Didn't really know what I was in for with a Robert De Niro directed, but it was pretty good. And it was, I would probably describe it as like Goodfellas meets Do the Right Thing, where they have like the disparity between the Italian community and the Black community. But just great music. I had a great time.
I love the way you describe that because I think your trepidation with it is probably the same thing that I had. I wasn't necessarily down on it or not excited to watch it, but I was a little bit, and we're going to talk about this with Donnie Brasco, which we're reviewing. I was worried about it kind of trying to be a little bit of a Goodfellas clone. Turns out not that at all, really. It's kind of a sweet, heartwarming tale. There are some not so heartwarming things that happen in it and characters that favor heavily that are not like that. But, it's basically a coming of age tale. I didn't think it was going to be like that. I thought the the kid who plays the main character, who's actually also in The Sopranos, is Matthew Bevilacqua, one of the funniest characters on that show. He's plays it pretty straight-laced, good kid, and it explores the Black community and the Italian American community in the Bronx, I believe. Of course, in the Bronx. The title is kind of speaking to itself there, but what is it, like the 50s or 60s? And it's
late 60s. Yeah,
it's a nice dynamic. But so you enjoyed that then?
I did. I gave it a 8.7 or so. Okay. I think the guy who played De Niro's son, I think there was points where I saw the back of him and like with the hair up, kind of gave me like young Robert De Niro, like Raging Bull type vibes. And I think he played it really well. I think he's Colombian, which is kind of surprising. But
after he played Matthew Bevilacqua on The Sopranos, he actually calls himself Matt Drinkwater. So I guess that's the translation there in the show, which is another funny tidbit. I don't think he really did anything else, but I like that actor.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I haven't seen him in much else, but he did a nice job in this one.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we're through all of that. You got anything else you want to throw out there before we throw it to our guest?
I believe that's it.
Cool. All right. Well, we now welcome on a very special guest. It's the first guest on the history of the show. So it's Kristen Maldonado, MTV social media. Kristen, as far as all the great accomplishments in your career, stacking them up against being the first guest of this podcast, how do you think those two things would compare?
I mean, this is pretty high. I feel honored.
Fair enough. Well, that's what we like to hear. Before we get going here, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of a rundown of just who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I am a TV and film critic on YouTube. Rotten Tomatoes approved, which is really exciting. That happened recently. I also work for MTV as a social media manager, and basically, like, my whole life is just all things pop culture, like at all times. You know, if I'm not sleeping, I'm just thinking about pop culture.
Yeah, it's hard too, except it's not our full-time job, which is kind of a tough for us, but we'll get there, we think.
Absolutely.
Starting off with the news that kind of rocked the film industry last week. Hate to start it off on a little bit of a dark tone here, but it's the passing of Chadwick Boseman. We want to touch on it. What was your opinion of him, and what do you think it was that he kind of meant to the film community?
I mean, well, first of all, condolences to his family and friends and just everyone out there that's really feeling this. The gravity of his loss. I think he's a true fighter. I think he's a true hero. I think he made so much impact when it comes to representation and seeing, people of color, especially superheroes of color on screen. And just seeing what's going on social media of just all these people that, feel such a connection and feel so inspired by his legacy. And, I just think it's really sad, but also, it's great to see the just like how much he meant to people and how much his career has meant to people. And I think that's going to continue on. I think he's built a great legacy.
And sort of piggybacking off of that, what do you see as the future for minority representation for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now everybody's focused on representation. I feel like that's something that is really, really big. There's so many people, including myself, who are just big champions of inclusion and representation in all forms. And I think we are definitely starting to see it, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, I think they already have Eternals coming up, and the new Shang movie that's coming up, where we're going to be able to see so many different people and so many different experiences on screen. And I just think that that's super important, whether it's in the superhero space or not, because people want to see their experiences reflected on the screen. I think that's what makes, the films and TV shows so impactful, because you can really tell such deep stories and such authentic stories in that way, whether it's on screen, behind the scenes, directing, writing, even criticism. I just think it's really important to have that kind of authentic voice, and the more different types of people we have in those spaces, the better.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And Black Panther, I mean, that was an absolute phenomenon. It was kind of appearing, I think, a couple of years ago, right around the time all of this superhero stuff started to really crest, I think. And we're two guys, admittedly, we're not huge into the superhero scene, but I think we're both pretty curious because of how big it's gotten. What do you think about like the general direction of the genre is after, the conclusion of the Avengers series, that was a couple years ago as well, the rise in popularity of some of these sort of one-off type of movies like Joker, and then Batman is rebooting again for what feels like the 5th time in like 10 years.
Yeah.
What do you kind of think about the future of the superhero genre on the whole?
Well, I think it's interesting because with superheroes, before you even get to the films and the TV shows, there's the comic books. And the comic books, there's so many different iterations of different stories. And it kind of feels like that's what we're bringing to the screen now, where it's like, there can be like 5 different Batman, franchises that are all very different and feel different. And while sometimes it can get repetitive, like how many times can we reboot these movies? I do think that there's something to letting each generation kind of have their own versions of these projects, because my parents grew up with like the Batman of like the 60s, that TV show, and so that feel dated, with Adam West, so that would feel kind of dated now. I mean, I think obviously the legacy continues on, but I think it's great to have those stories continue to be told for future generations and kind of getting your own, Batman or Spider-Man, and also still being able to keep that legacy going. I think also when it comes to superheroes, it can, at times it can feel like, well, what else can you do? Like that hasn't been done already. But I think we're starting to see that you can kind of add these different things to superhero stories that give it a bit of a twist, whether it's like New Mutants, where they're kind of taking that story of X-Men but giving it a horror movie twist, or even taking different superhero properties that maybe we haven't tapped into before, because everyone's so into Marvel and DC, but there's like the Umbrella Academy through Dark Horse, or The Boys, where we're getting to see these different types of superheroes. Like The Boys talks about, what if superheroes kind of didn't get checked and they kind of could do whatever they wanted, and they sort of frames the superheroes as sort of the bad guys in a way. And so I think that there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of think outside the box with these ideas. And I think the reason it works so well is because, there is this like sort of hope and relatability to superheroes that I think just transcends genres and mediums, so that you enjoy them whether you're reading a comic or a TV show or a movie, and whether it's a classic superhero story, an origin story, or something completely different like a thriller, a comedy, a horror story. So yeah.
So moving off of the superhero genre a little bit, so what has your quarantine setup kind of been like since everything went crazy back in March?
Yeah, well, I'm working from home, which is good and bad, I guess, because it's nice to not have to commute. I used to work in the city. I'm from New York, so it's like a 45-minute train right now. I don't have to do that, which is nice. But also then I get kind of lazy and I'll just like not go outside for a long time. I have to leave my apartment. I have to go down a whole bunch of flights of stairs. And but I have my office is my bed or my couch. What about you guys?
I mean, it's been the same for us, honestly. And we both have day jobs. I work a desk sales job, so I've been home pretty much since that St. Patrick's Day weekend working, but it's been pretty good in that respect. It's definitely helped me with my movie and TV consumption, which is always a great thing.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I'm in social media, so I'm on a computer all day long, and it's no different at night when I watch a movie, and video on demand has definitely helped with that. So
totally.
And in that respect, I mean, it's had an effect on your consumption as well, I would guess. What kind of movies would you pick out as the ones that you've watched in quarantine as your favorite? Maybe one that was kind of entertaining but bad. What were some of the movies that you would pick out of a hat as your favorite through quarantine so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of musicals. So Hamilton was the greatest thing that I got to see in quarantine, I feel like. I don't know if you guys watched it, but just to see the actual stage production of the Broadway musical put in a place where you could watch it streaming was incredible. I loved it so much I bought like a whole book about the history of how they made the musical and all of like the hip hop references in it and stuff. It was so interesting. It's one of those, I love projects where you can really like deep dive into like, how does this connect to this? And what do these motifs mean? And what do these metaphors mean? And that's like misleadingly like an amazing project to do that with. So yeah, the music is also great. So I've been singing that a lot in my living room, and I'm sure my neighbors are like,
no, have you caught you're in New York. Have you caught the play?
No, it was very expensive. So I was like, pay $1,000 or watch
Disney
it on
Plus.
Disney
demand,
Plus,
you know,
yeah.
watch it on Disney Plus. So that was great. I also loved Eurovision Song Contest, the Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams movie. I know that one kind of got mixed reviews, but I had so much fun with it. That Huzavik song at the end, I love like a power ballad. So yeah, that was awesome. What about you guys?
We basically both came into this off the idea that we had started a list and we were going to kind of, keep track of every movie we've been watching and rate it. And obviously we're both super into TV. So we were just talking about Nightcrawler, which is on Netflix. We had both kind of already seen that at this point, but really interesting. Not the most like fun, breezy watch like you're talking about there, but really interesting Jake Gyllenhaal movie. I was just saying that I just got HBO Max, so I've been jumping back into Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, which is a fun TV show. We'll talk about TV in a second here. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, for me, started this list back in April, and I think I'm like 160 odd movies deep.
Well, you're good.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I've seen that many movies in like the last 2 years or something.
You know what? You're not the first person to say that. So I've been getting into Whiplash. Some other music movies like
another
really
La La
Land.
Land watch that you can just kind of breeze through. Whiplash.
Yeah. It's a good one. Any TV shows that you're watching?
Oh yeah, I feel like I love movies, but I'm definitely more of a TV person for some reason. I think it's, even though it's longer, I feel like I'm accomplishing something when each episode ends. I'm like, yeah, I finished that. Okay, next,
Yeah.
So some of my favorites this year, Umbrella Academy, like blew my mind. I loved that, especially the end was crazy. So I cannot wait for season 3. I feel like going back to like my nostalgic days a bit. So I was really into the Babysitter's Club show that came out on Netflix. That was so good. It was really good. And also watching a bunch of CW things like Nancy Drew, which, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Nancy Drew, but they really take it to like a different level. It's like a crazy supernatural mystery that's like really dark. And that was fun. And Katie Keene, another musical. It's like an Archie Comics TV show that it's kind of like a rose-colored glasses look at New York City and trying to make it in Broadway and music. And I don't know, I was just really into those kind of like lighthearted shows while we're going through such a difficult time,
I love the CW doing that too with like Riverdale and stuff. It's an interesting concept, sort of taking that lighthearted kind of, child, comic strip or, book or whatever and turning it into something totally different and fun. That's cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of Katie Keene, I think we're having a upcoming guest coming in that's actually a writer on the show. So
Oh, awesome. Oh, very cool.
We'll have to hook you up with her.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad I'm so upset the show got canceled because it was so good. But
yeah, definitely. I'm going to have to jump through that myself, actually. But I mean, jumping back to movies, like, so last year, 2019, it's one of the most historic years in movie history, I think, especially for recent history. How would you kind of sum up the sentiment you had for the industry or you felt for the industry amongst people around this time last year versus right now, which has kind of been a weird wash of a year movie-wise?
It's definitely been a weird year for movies. I mean, last year with Parasite winning so big at the Oscars, I was like so happy. I loved that movie so much.
Just saw it for the first time the other day.
What'd you think?
Awesome. Yeah. Really, really great.
Yeah.
Win, I think.
Absolutely. It was so good. And I think this year it's definitely been weird. But I also think that it's sort of allowing people to think outside the box a little bit. In terms of, how films are promoted, in terms of, getting access to films and things like that. For me as a creator and like, someone who, wants to watch every movie and TV show out there. I feel like there's been a lot of really interesting experiences like virtual film festivals and things like that I'd never necessarily would have been able to go to before, but now I'm able to kind of check out these movies from, all over that, and kind of get access to different things that I would maybe not have been able to check out before. And I think it's been really cool in that aspect. And I actually think that because of this year, at least I've noticed a lot of like YouTube creators in the film and TV space have been getting access to more screeners and, interviews and things like that, and are kind of being taken more seriously as journalists in this space. And I think that that's really cool because, what we're doing is journalism, and we're promoting movies and TV shows, and to see the like industry kind of changing and then like accepting that and accepting us in as kind of like press is really cool. So yeah, I mean, I know that it's been a difficult year for film, but I think also it's been a little bit more of like thinking outside the box in terms of promoting them and giving other people access that maybe they didn't have before, which I think has been really cool.
Are there any other like 2020 movies that you've been getting into? Like I know I've seen Palm Springs recently, King of Staten Island.
Yeah, I mean, I think those films are great examples of how, like, you know, like Palm Springs is, I think, a movie that, you know, maybe would have gone under the radar other years because, you know, it's a Hulu movie. It's not in theaters. And there'd be so many other movies going on to kind of like take the attention away from that. But because there haven't been as many movies, I think that's one that, you know, really like went viral and people were talking about so much. And I think it definitely took the Groundhog's Day storyline and kind of gave it something a little bit different that you don't always see, which is fun because that's the kind of story that, like, you know, it's so repetitive that, you know, that's what you're used to seeing, the same thing over and over again. But I thought this one kind of gave it a little bit of a different twist that was really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's a very unique title, one that you wouldn't feel like would be a big theatrical movie, but it was supposed to be originally. I think same with King of Staten Island, and they both kind of had this sort of intimate feel, good to sort of watching your living room, which is what I wound up doing. I liked them both a lot. But are there any titles that you got circled on your calendar, movies, TV, whatever it is for the rest of the year, even after, that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. For movies, I'm really excited for Candyman. I feel like Nia DaCosta has been getting so much buzz as a director. You know, they already announced that she's going to be directing the new Captain Marvel 2. So that to me is like, all right, I got to see what Candyman's going to be about. It looks really cool. And In the Heights is another movie that I'm excited for, another Lin-Manuel Miranda musical that's being adapted into a movie. It was supposed to come out this year, but, you know, got delayed. But I'm really excited for that one. Also, for TV shows, I'm super excited for The Haunting of Bly Manor. I don't know if you guys checked out The Haunting of Hill House, but oh, that show is so good. Like, episode 5 was like one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. So I have really high hopes. Mike Flanagan is such an incredible director, so I cannot wait for that. And also, there's a show coming out on Netflix called Julie and the Phantoms that I'm really excited about also. That's sort of like a it's by Kenny Ortega, who did like High School Musical and The Descendants, but it's a TV show, so I'm excited for that. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think for me at least, I'm looking forward to the Trial of the Chicago 7 from Aaron Sorkin coming out in October, I believe. That's probably what I'm checking out. Yeah,
for me, TV picks, I've been telling him forever. Fargo on FX, coming back for a 4th season finally with Chris Rock starring. I've been looking forward to that forever. It's been delayed, so it's finally coming out this coming month, and yeah, pretty pumped.
Nice.
Yeah, and I believe the remake of West Side Story is coming out the end of this year or so.
Yeah. I don't know if it still is, but I think it was supposed to. Yeah.
Spielberg, I believe, actually. So just going back a little bit to movies, obviously, you know, we've mentioned going straight to video on demand. What do you really think that means for the industry long term?
I mean, that's a good question. I think it's kind of opening up the idea that, like, we can have movies go on VOD a lot earlier than they have been. And seeing that it is successful, potentially even having movies go to theaters and VOD at the same time. I know we saw that with Trolls this year.
Sure.
And that was really successful. That did really well. I think when it comes to VOD, I feel like, I will say, though, I guess it depends on the project, because I think with Trolls, that made sense. It was like, you know, a set price, and for families that, you know, are going to watch that movie a million times, it's like, oh, this is worth it, you know, for a family of 4 or more, you know, to buy this movie on VOD. But, you know, then you come up with the idea of like Mulan that's going to be going to Disney Plus, and how they're going to be streaming on Disney Plus they're adding like a pay wall for it, so it's $30, but then in 3 months it's going to be free on Disney Plus. So I don't know, that kind of, like, I'm not sure how I feel about that. The fact that, like, you know, if you want to watch it right now, you could pay for it when it comes out and have it for as long as you're going to have Disney Plus, but also in 3 months, whoever didn't pay for it can also just have it for free, so to speak, even though you're paying for your Disney Plus subscription. So I'm not really sure what that's gonna mean, but I do think overall I do kind of like the idea of watching movies at home.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it depends on the movie because there's certain ones that it's like, well, actually, this is maybe a better experience in the theater, or that it's easy at home to like be on your phone and kind of get distracted, whereas like that doesn't necessarily happen in the movie theaters. But overall, I'm a little bit lazy sometimes, and I like watching a movie at home.
Yeah,
what about you guys? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up pretty well there in that it's a situation where nobody kind of really has the right answer, at least not yet. And smarter minds are probably going to solve it at some point. But I think you put it well in that there are some titles that are better for it, some titles that aren't. He and I are both really into the movie theater experience. I like VOD as well. I think it's going to be, the future of streaming to a certain extent is, sending movies that would otherwise have been theater titles to your living room. I think it's an interesting idea, but there are also some other titles like Tenet. I'd love to go and see that in a theater right now. I don't know if it's totally tenable, unfortunately. So we're going to see what happens with that. But I look at a movie like The Irishman, which came out to Netflix. Everybody watched it that way. I went and saw it in theaters, and I think that sort of colored my opinion on it, and that I wasn't looking at my phone. I was able to totally engross, and I think I liked it more than some other people did. But it's a weird situation, but we both long-term want to see movie theaters stick around, and we want it to kind of be a sustainable, viable, long-term business. Do you have any ideas on how you would maybe try to make that happen, or do you even want that to happen? What do you think?
I mean, I do think, that there is a great appeal to, having a theater, a movie theater open. It does feel like an experience, it's like an event to go. I think right now, because, of everything that's going on, it's obviously difficult. But I think that this could also maybe bring us back to that idea of just like thinking outside the box and being creative in terms of, places are starting to open up drive-ins and screen movies in different ways. And, that could kind of bring us back to, maybe like a little bit of a simpler time where like, you could just go in your car and drive up and park and watch a movie. There's things like that I think we've kind of evolved past. But, maybe this is a great time to kind of like bring that back and bring back the idea of like, instead of just being crammed in a theater, being like purposeful about like, okay, we're going to make this an event and go sit in our car together and like, enjoy this film. So, and I think also maybe making theaters just like safer in terms of like separating seats, maybe removing certain seats, certain rows or something like that could also make it just like a little bit safer so that you can like sit and not have to worry about like someone's right in front of you or right next to you. But I guess it's really difficult to figure this out until someone starts putting it together.
Yeah, very well said. But with the Oscars being delayed now, I believe until May of next year. Do you see any movies that you've seen so far, or maybe any that have been yet to release that you could see winning, if not Best Picture, maybe some other categories?
That is a good question.
Early, maybe, but we figured we'd ask.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very... I was really into the soundtrack from Eurovision Song Contest, and I know that that's kind of like a random pick, but I mean, I could see maybe that song Fugheddaboudit being nominated for Best Song. It was really good, and I think the soundtrack actually might have even charted, if I remember correctly. So, maybe there's a potential for something like that. I could see other films like The Invisible Man maybe getting recognition. Maybe something like Birds of Prey. I know that I'm not sure like if this is coming on May, like what kind of competition there'll be, like if maybe they'll try to stack movies up at the beginning of the year or something to kind of push it into the Oscars. But I guess those are some of the ones I'm thinking about that I think could maybe get nominated for things. And also there's that new Netflix animated movie that's coming out, Over the Moon. I feel like that looks like it's like already looking like it's getting buzz just in general. And not even, I think only just like maybe a mini trailer has come out. So I think that could maybe be up for like animation or something. What about you guys?
I think original screenplay, I think I'd look at something like Palm Springs, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tenet will probably be getting some acclaim. And the Don't know exactly what categories, but I think it's kind of the blockbuster of the summer. You know,
Just
Yeah.
get Chris up on the stage for a little lifetime achievement. I wouldn't hate that.
that's all you need. All you
Yeah.
need.
But
Maybe
I mean,
Dune too, right? I feel like people.
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about Dune
Good
a
point.
lot
I
as
haven't.
well.
Yeah, I haven't looked into Dune too much. I really need to,
Sure.
or maybe I won't. I might just want to go into that completely blind with no media opinions or anything. But I'm curious about what the Oscars are going to be looking like. I mean, like you mentioned, Matt, I think it might be April or May of next year. Don't know when the Emmys are supposed to be, but award shows. You know, I'm assuming you were plugged into the VMAs the other night.
Yes.
Just kind of your thoughts on that and what if that provides like a blueprint going forward for award shows for at least the time being. What were your thoughts on the VMAs and how that format could potentially work moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the award shows that we've seen recently have been, award shows or kind of, I think Disney was doing a lot of kind of like sing-along celebration kind of specials have been, from home where like, people are like how we are right now, sitting in their house singing or, accepting awards or, giving performances and whatnot from like literally their home. And I think what was really cool about the VMAs was that we had people, some people sent in like acceptance speeches from home, but they also actually like had people come to New York and filmed in like, separate stages in separate locations. And I think the way that it came together really felt like actual award show. It didn't feel like, we're people sitting in our houses just splicing things together. Like it felt like we're actually watching them in Times Square or we're watching them in a theater putting the show together. And I think that it looked very, very good to me. And I thought it was very innovative how they put it together so that it did feel live, even though it wasn't. And I think it could definitely be a blueprint of what they could do for future award shows, especially when it comes to performances, especially when it comes to how they, have a host kind of lead the entire, production.
Mhm.
I think doing that, it looks better. It feels more like live. And I thought all of the performances looked like can't miss kind of performances, So I think that they could definitely do something like that with the Oscars for sure. And all it takes is, getting like a few people, not a lot of people, together on a stage or in a sound stage or in a studio to put something together. You don't need a lot of people, I think, to do that. So
Kristen, before we wrap up, is there anything that we can plug for you? Maybe social media handles, your podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So I recently launched a podcast called Pop Culture Planet, and it's all about discussions, like analytical pop culture discussions with experts in the space. We try to be very inclusive and diverse in our guests and make sure that we're really getting different people's voices out there. And actually, we recently just did an episode on superhero culture, which was really
Listen
fun.
to that one. Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was really fun. And I also am on YouTube, youtube.com/kmaldo. I'm kmaldo on Twitter and Facebook. And if you add a 1 on the end of that, you can find me on Instagram. So, yeah.
Great. Well, everyone be sure to check Kristen out where you can find her there. She just mentioned, really appreciate you hopping on with us. Great discussion. And let's do it again.
Yeah, thank you. This was so fun. I hope to have you guys on my show as well soon.
Cool.
Absolutely. We'd love to do it. Have a great night. Okay.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Okay. So that was Kristen Maldonado, inaugural guest for the show. I think she did a tremendous job.
Yeah, definitely full of enthusiasm, and it's pretty cool to see, they get the pop culture side of things. She's a social manager for MTV, so thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely, man. She was a lot of fun. What do we got left here? Just our movie review then, huh?
Just our movie review. Yeah, we did Donnie Brasco this week is the recommendation from Jake. Jake, I believe this was your first viewing.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Yeah, it was my first viewing. Was very interested to check it out. My guy Kevin, who's a listener of the show, I believe, at least every now and then he checked it out. He's a big Donnie Brasco guy, so he recommended it to me. I went ahead and checked it out. And my sentiment is that I liked it. I don't know if that was what I was totally expecting, but it was a pretty good, solid, sort of biopic-y feeling mob movie starring Johnny Depp and Al Pacino.
Yeah, Johnny Depp, interesting casting choice. I think he in my opinion, was the star of the movie. Obviously, the title helps out a little bit there. But yeah, what I like about this movie, I come from an Italian background, so all my Italian relatives are more or less similar to the characters featured in Donnie Brasco. When Al Pacino or Lefty is cooking in the kitchen and he throws salt over his left shoulder, my mom does that to this day. So definitely connected with me.
So that's not a Dumb and Dumber reference then?
I don't believe so. No.
Damn. I was always kind of thinking that they're the diner and the sea bath or whatever is trying to throw hands with them. Yeah, so that was an interesting scene. Very interesting performance from Pacino. I think he kind of does it all. I think he goes full spectrum from guy who's kind of trying to play a power broker to guy who has been pretty much revealed to not have the power that he claims to have. And then it's sort of a similar sort of song and dance with the Joe Pistone, Johnny Depp character, Joe Pistone / Donnie Brasco. He kind of proves to be a guy who is relinquishing some power, even though he kind of holds it all in his hands as this FBI agent that is tracking down this mafia group led by Michael Madsen's Sonny Black, or at least it gets to that point. They're sort of rudderless as the movie starts with Lefty, the Al Pacino character, kind of being the de facto leader at the time. So it's an interesting movie kind of about the exchange of power and mainly about identity, I would say, as well.
Yeah, I think, with this movie, you see Johnny Depp kind of, in a sense, almost sympathizing with the mafia members. He's kind of at that point where he's fully integrated. And at the same time, he's working for an intelligence agency, so he can't really fully give his whole heart to it. But you can see that he, if he wasn't in the FBI, he might, still be one of the guys. We talk about it in movies a lot, acting within the movie. And I think Johnny Depp, this is probably where he really set himself apart as that, potential leading man. And, you wouldn't think from a gangster movie, but he did a phenomenal job. And I think this might have would have been what landed him Blow.
Yeah, it's very similar to Blow in that way. I think they were kind of trying to go for the same thing in that movie. Very similar to Reservoir Dogs, I think, in a lot of different ways. They open very dialogue-heavy scene where they're kind of talking about nothing, and it's very snappy. And then obviously the dynamic between Depp and Pacino as, this young cop that's trying to infiltrate this sort of tough guy crowd. You could see the parallels between the Keitel and the Pacino character and the Depp and the Tim Roth character. Probably not as done as effectively, I think, but I think they do it pretty well. I mean, they managed to weave in the story of Lefty's son kind of being this drug addict and a guy who can't really get himself together. So he looks to Donnie as sort of a surrogate for that. And I think ultimately the storytelling, I think, was pretty impressive. There were some parts where they lost me, but overall, the weaving of the themes in with the actual literal storytelling was surprisingly, I thought was pretty good. I don't know if that's what I was expecting.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I mentioned, last episode when this was, recommended as the next movie. Wasn't really high on this movie. I kind of consider it to be like a B gangster movie. And I still stand by that. I think I would, up my rating a couple of points. But yeah, it's very character driven, which I think is very critical to gangster movies. And how about Michael Madsen? I mean, he did a great job as Sonny Black there.
Yeah, definitely. It's I circled him as one of my favorite performances. Like you said, acting, character-driven type of movie. I think Depp and Pacino really carry that. But Madsen, he's a guy who is sort of starts out as kind of an ancillary character, just another guy that's sort of in the group. Obviously, you recognize him if you've seen some other big movies from the early '90s. So he stands out in that respect, and ultimately winds up standing out even more as kind of this wise guy. Sort of, I wouldn't say in training, but he's, a wise guy about to become a wise guy type of thing. He's got, I think early on, there's some warmth to the character, but then just more and more menace, which is kind of the Madsen thing. And, pretty effective as old Sonny Black there. Not to be confused, of course, with Sonny Red.
Definitely.
Like a sparkling water brand from Wegmans.
Just look at, all you got to do is look at the shoes and you can decipher which character. But yeah, I think Michael Madsen, great job. I think he's the definition of a working actor. I checked out his IMDb page. He's been in over 300 movies, which is kind of insane for him, especially if you just know him in the Tarantino verse. obviously as Vic Vega in Reservoir Dogs. He's in Kill Bill. He's in Hateful Eight. But yeah, Michael Madsen, great job in this movie.
How different is his career if he takes the role of Vincent Vega, which he was offered?
I mean, you're talking he's probably, leading movies, I would think, right?
You got to think so. I mean, he goes and does Wyatt Earp. I think he got Travolta, washed up Travolta, who, God bless the guy, but, Madsen was a hot property at the time. If he had been Vincent Vega, it would have been something. Here's the deal, I mean, it's legal to buy it. It's legal to sell it. It's legal to carry it, but, cops can't stop you in Amsterdam. So that's my Michael Madsen as Vincent Vega, in case you didn't pick up on that.
They call it a Royale, but with cheese.
Yeah, Royale with cheese. I mean, what if he's too fucking busy? We're just absolutely just blending movies at this point. Totally.
There's a shot Marvin in the face.
Oh man, I didn't mean to do it. It was a fucking accident, but
Yeah, definitely. A little bit short-sighted from Madsen's career. I was actually listening to a Tarantino Howard Stern interview, and he was saying he was talking to Michael Madsen. He said he's done like 2/3 of his movies just for money, and that's kind of a shame because I think if he would have like refined who he was and defined himself more as maybe that potential leading man, I think he could have had a better career overall.
Yeah, I think he got into he had a lot of success early on, and that can kind of hurt you a little bit, I think, sometimes. Mm-hmm. You're younger, you kind of don't really know what you're doing. You're kind of chasing a paycheck, but I think he's also had a little bit of a complicated life. I don't know entirely about it, but yeah, and interesting figure. Still friends with Quentin to this day, which is interesting. He was actually in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
Yep.
Do a podcast with him actually a couple months ago.
Oh, really?
The Pure Cinema podcast by the New Beverly, which is the cinema that Tarantino owns. The guys over there, they do a great job. I listen occasionally, and he hopped on with them after Once Upon a Time came out a few months after. The very raspy voice, very distinctive, but seems like an incredibly nice guy.
Yeah, we'll have to I'll have to check that out, and then we'll have to tweet that link out. That's pretty unique. I wouldn't really peg him as a podcast guy, but
yeah, I'll put it in the show notes actually.
Okay, sounds good. Other things I had from this movie, besides I enjoyed it. It's one of those movies that you can enjoy. It might not be like a Best Picture nominee, but you can still really enjoy it. Talked about that a little bit last week. Just a couple random things like the whole lion subplot as a pet. That's actually a real thing that actually happened to Lefty. He actually owned a lion. I know we'll talk about trivia, but
this is based on a true story. I think we should throw that out there too.
Yes, based on a true story. FBI member Joseph Pistone was actually in the infiltrated the mafia for 6 years, and I know they show in the movie that was basically just probably a year or so, but it was actually 6 years he was away from his family, and then he had to go into federal protection afterwards. But
under an assumed name.
Under assumed name. Crazy stuff.
How do you go from Joe Pistone to another name? Like, it feels like Joe Pistone is already a pseudonym.
It does sound pretty fake. Donnie Brasco sounds even more fake. So, those mafiosos are probably used to names like that. And Tommy Two Times,
Yeah, because he said everything twice.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I think it's Jimmy Two Times. It's like you mentioned, kind of a B movie, enjoyable watch. You mentioned sort of being distracted through A Serious Man. Maybe it was the place I was watching it in on a Sunday night. I was maybe feeling a little distracted from it, but overall, it was an enjoyable watch. I gave it a 7.7, I believe. Loved, we're going to get into this, but loved the scene with Paul Giamatti and Tim Blake Nelson prior to them getting really famous, doing the Forget About It thing. So some memorable scenes.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Joey, forget about it. Memorable scenes, great performances, an interesting script, soundtrack pretty good too. Overall, a solid movie.
Yeah, I would agree. It's it's not one of my favorite gangster movies. It's my favorite genre. I know you talked about Goodfellas being your favorite movie of all time. It is also mine. So I think it might be a little bit unfair to compare the two, especially when you're working with Scorsese or Coppola with The Godfather versus this director.
Sure.
So ready for a little bit of trivia.
Sure.
So during the Fugheddaboudit scene, the name was actually changed. So when he was talking about like, you could say it in this situation, you could say that situation. We'll talk about it in quotes, but the name Paulie, which was in the movie, was changed from Booby, which was his actual name, the actual mafioso guy. He requested that his identity be kept a secret in the movie. So after, in post-production, they had actually changed Depp's words there, actually overdubbed it.
Interesting. I thought I could notice that there was some dubbing going on in there, at least with Depp, because he's in a weird spot, chilling on the couch in therapist pose with a Budweiser on his forehead. Really intriguing.
Yep. And another piece I had for you, the scene at the end where Donnie Brasco is in the Pistone, I guess by that point, is at the gun range. That was only in the movie because the studio wanted it in the trailer. They wanted to distinguish him from the mafia to the FBI. Just a fun little piece there.
I love the 90s.
Oh, so great. So great. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see here. So the director actually visited the bar that was frequented by the wise guys. We see this a lot. 2 weeks ago, we reviewed White Men Can't Jump. They actually went to the neighborhoods where they said they were. Gives it an authentic feel, and I think that gives the directors a good idea of how they want to shoot and how they want to direct.
This movie is the way that it's shot and the way they set up New York as kind of a very big place, whereas some other New York movies, they kind of make it a little claustrophobic, like a ton of wide, big shots of like all the bridges and like some of the main streets. I think one of the earlier ones is Lefty and Donnie walking across the street, and it's just like massive, like towering apartment buildings going back like as far as you can see. It's really well orchestrated a job by the cinematographer and the director. Their names I don't have off the top of my head, but I was impressed by that as well.
Yeah, and I think like we mentioned before with The Bronx Tale, definitely had to be shot in those neighborhoods. The Irishman, although that was probably on a set, I got the feel of the era of the location. Same goes for The Godfather. So I think it's pretty important. My last piece of trivia here. Lefty Ruggiero, played by Al Pacino, was actually he was actually arrested before he could be killed. So he actually got arrested. Then he died in 1994, which was, I believe, a year before they started shooting the movie. Guess they got the go ahead to use his real name there. But you hear this a lot. You hear it with in The Irishman when he's telling the story in the retirement home. He's saying like the people he can name, people he can't name. So definitely a big piece of the gangster genre.
Shout out to The Sopranos, season 3, episode 1. I think it is Mr. Ruggiero's Neighborhood. I think it's actually a character in the episode, but maybe that is a reference to Lefty Ruggiero.
Could be. I got to check that out. He seemed like a pretty eccentric fella there.
Yeah. one of the best episodes of The Sopranos. So yeah.
Did you have any trivia pieces, Jake?
I did not this week, if we want to keep it rolling.
Sure. Keep it rolling here. Get into our categories a bit. So the first category, as we always do, is throwing tomatoes. So this would be scenes, plots that we had some difficulty with, some bones to pick, as it were. For me, it's kind of a silly scene. It's like when they first get down to Florida and they play tennis. And just kind of, it was pretty sick, but it kind of took away from their prowess.
It was it was little out of place, made them look like kind of buffoons, but it's sick nonetheless. That's kind of one of mine. I guess I could jump right into it. It's entertaining, and like you said, you have Italian heritage, so I was kind of. In other movies, they do this, but they do it, I think, a little more tastefully. But they really lean into the Italian American like greaseball stereotype.
It's a Fugazi.
They're doing the Cadillac and it's like, what are we doing here? And it's like, if you look at like Goodfellas or The Sopranos, I think they do that plenty, but they also give all the characters like the appropriate amount of depth to complement it, or they do it juxtaposed against them, doing something different that sort of goes against it. So I think for it to be satire, there has to be more appropriate, sort of pushing the other way against the stereotype, as opposed to like most of the guys in their crew are just idiots. Like Madsen is kind of the only real character alongside Donnie and Lefty.
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on it a little bit with The Departed, how it can get a little bit cartoonish at points. And I think this movie definitely features a lot of that. But
yeah, I think that's probably where I was going without being able to put my finger on it entirely. But even The Departed, I think, did a better job doing it in some spots. But yeah, so that would be my first one. I think the only other thing I wanted a little bit more of Joe's home life from like when things were good. Because it kind of feels like he had a reason to just go and be a dickhead and like turn into Donnie in the way that he did. I just wanted maybe a little bit more. It would have made it a little bit of a longer movie, but maybe just some more about like, you know, him and his wife, and before things just totally went to crap.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. I think you know, the real life story. They said this movie was 85% factual, which I totally believe. Late 70s mafia, but I think they would have included the piece about the family. I think that gives him more of a character arc chance. So I think definitely could have been done better there. But moving on to That's a Bravo. I mean, for me, it's not even a contest. It's the Fugheddaboudit scene. It's like you get these two like laypersons, like Tim Blake Nelson and what's the other guy's name? The other actor?
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti, of course.
From Billions and
Billions, yeah.
John Adams, and yeah, plenty of stuff.
Yeah, slipped my mind there. But just explaining it to like, and I've had this before. Like I've gone up to family functions up in Scranton where all my Italian family lives, and it's just they have a different way of talking, different way of expressing themselves. So I definitely felt that in that scene.
Everywhere at all times.
Yes, always.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Italians and Irish kind of similar in that way. Just, you know, food kind of always featuring heavily. I think that's something that I enjoyed as well growing up. But yeah, the Fugheddaboudit scene is, I think I tweeted a little bit after with a little clip from it. Iconic Paul Giamatti and Tim Blake Nelson having a little moment there, doing the Fugheddaboudit. And it basically like it sums up the whole like greaseball Italian thing that they're doing, and I think it makes it funny and enjoyable for that segment of things. And I think Depp does a good job kind of playing it very straight and like not getting caught up in the jokiness of it, because it is very funny. But Depp plays it very seriously while the other guys are just kind of having fun. And this is officially a Tim Blake Nelson podcast. It
is at this point. I think we're going to do strictly TBN movies. And I'm looking forward to it. I don't know about you, but I think he's got a pretty nice Rolodex going on there.
It seems like it. I mean, I didn't even know he was in this. I think you had forgotten about it.
Totally forgot.
Yeah, which is it's really tremendous. Good for him. You know, now he's playing Looking Glass and Watchmen, and well, I guess Watchmen's over. That was only a miniseries.
Yeah. He was in Just Mercy, Minority Report, Holes, tons of movies, tons of good ones.
Holes is sick. I got to rewatch that.
It is phenomenal. And moving on here, That's a Bravo. So we're at keeping score. This would be the music that we enjoyed. You know, it's a good movie. Good movie for music. Not you know, obviously Goodfellas, Godfather. You know, a little bit more iconic, I should say. And a couple ones I enjoyed from this one. Don't Bring Me Down by ELO. Definitely a classic. Absolutely a classic.
That's the one licensed song that really stood out to me. Original score by Patrick Doyle. I think it fit the movie really well. It didn't totally blow me away, but he's a good working, you know, music guy. He did, I think, a couple Harry Potter movies, a couple other big movies. So, guy who's definitely worked. I like the score. It didn't blow me away. I think the music was kind of one of the things with the movie where I felt like if they had added to that a little better, it would have given it a little bit more flavor. So, better licensed songs, a little bit more of a cutting score that brings more emotion out of the audience. And yeah, you mentioned Don't Bring Me Down. That was kind of the main big one that I noticed. But other than that, not a ton to really write home about music wise.
Yeah, I think they were going for the late 70s feel versus the Italian feel almost.
Yeah.
And you know, it did okay.
It's fine. It's just kind of there. Like the thing about like a movie like Goodfellas or like a Quentin movie, the soundtrack, it just jumps right out at you. It really doesn't do that in something like this.
That's what I liked about the Bronx, A Bronx Tale, that they included a lot of Dean Martin, a lot of Frank Sinatra, a lot of like of that era, but
Really
also relating
puts
to
you in a place. Yeah, like
Mhm.
it puts you in a place and time. This kind of doesn't really do that.
Yeah. Come on, figure it out. Anything else that you had music wise for keeping score?
No, yeah, like I said, yeah, good,
I
not
think
great, didn't really stand out.
Good, not great. Good, not great. Do love the "What You Won't Do for Love" by Bobby Caldwell. Another classic they put in there. Moving on to quote and quotables, our favorite quotes from the movie, and I think this was probably one of the strongest parts of the movie.
Yeah, definitely great written dialogue. It's you see it right from that first scene. I had that, and that's a Bravo, just that fast talking kind of dialogue heavy type of movie. I do like a lot. And a lot of them coming from Lefty, not surprisingly. Pacino really chewing it up. It's always great. First one, he's talking to Donnie. In all the 5 boroughs I'm known, forget about. I'm known all over the fucking world. Anybody ask about Lefty from Mulberry Street, you're pissing up the whole world fucking street, my friend. So it gets a little garbled there at a certain point, but pretty funny line and good delivery by Pacino. The delivery is really good as well.
You put Al Pacino in any movie, you're going to get a phenomenal dialogue performance. In Heat,
Zoom, zoom.
hooah!
Gina.
Oh man, we got to do Heat rewatchable at some point because that is just strictly quotes.
Yeah, and she had a great
ass.
That's a fucking SNL sketch of a movie if I've ever seen one.
Oh yeah. I think who's the other actor in that scene that I'm forgetting at the moment?
It's De Niro, right? Or is it?
No. It's
no. That's when they're at the diner. No, that's when like. God, there's a lot of actors in that. I forget.
I'm looking it up now because he was like totally taken back at the when he said, "You got a great ass." I can't find it right now, but yeah, we'll do that at some point. Oh, I think it was Hank Azaria. I think it was actually Hank Azaria.
Oh my God, I forgot he was in that too.
Yep. So it was that scene, and Hank Azaria gave like a genuine reaction when he said that because he was not expecting that whatsoever.
Two guys who sneaky kind of look alike.
Yeah, I could kind of see that, and I wouldn't put past Azaria to do a great Pacino impression.
Yeah, that would be tremendous.
So my first quote here is Lefty is cooking in his kitchen, and he's saying a punch of salt, and Donnie goes, a pinch? No, he said no punch. A punch or a pinch? Not a pinch. What'd I say? I said pinch. Now you said punch. Sometimes you don't make no fucking sense, Donnie.
That kind of sums up their dynamic early on where Lefty just kind of really doesn't know what he's doing or what he's talking about, but he just sort of acts like he does. So that's his whole power dynamic and kind of why Donnie is able to take advantage of him pretty easily.
Yeah, I think he kind of plays into Lefty's hand there a little bit. He's like, yeah, what you said. I know what you're talking about. So give him a little false sense of security there. But
yeah, for me, one of the smarter written ones that I remember is him talking about getting whacked. Lefty talking about it. That is, he's talking to Donnie and says, when they send for you, you go in alive, you come out dead, and it's your best friend that does it. Kind of, I think, sums up the whole getting whacked idea pretty well. Reminds me of the way that, spoilers, Tommy gets whacked in Goodfellas. He thinks he's about to get made. And then John Gotti just puts a cap in that ass.
Yeah. And, my next quote here is when they're sitting at the breakfast table with Donnie Brasco and his kids. And he said, I bet yous can't go this entire meal without saying 3 words. And the little girl says, you lose. And then there's silence.
That was really good. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think shows that his kids are a little bit more clever than he might let on. But yeah, I really enjoy the family dynamic of this movie.
Yeah, it's good. And just the way the camera just holds on them for like 10 seconds. And he's just like waiting for them to just speak up and they just don't. I think that was really well done by Depp too.
Yep.
Another one, this one from Joe, when he's talking to his wife, kind of the I am the danger moment. All my life, I've tried to be the good guy, the guy in the white fucking hat. And for what? For nothing. I'm not becoming like them. I am them. I think that was a big inspiration for I Am the One Who Knocks, Breaking Bad.
It's a really good point. I didn't really pick up on that in that sense, but I'm sure you definitely draw from some gangster movies, and this one is no exception.
And maybe that does speak to the idea that you don't need to show like the good times from his family life or anything because he just kind of is one of these guys, and that's the dilemma of the movie. So maybe I misread that, but just something I noticed.
Yeah. My next quote, I think this might be a scene with probably the most tension in the movie. It's right at the end before they get captured by the FBI, and they're sitting in the car. And Donnie asks Lefty, "You think I'm a rat?" And Lefty says, "How many times have I had you in my house? If you're a rat, then I'm the biggest mutt in the history of the mafia." And puts the gun to his head. Later, like 5 seconds later, he like points the gun at Donnie. So you don't really know what's going on. I think this was really good filmmaking right here.
Yeah, definitely. That was well done. And I think kind of right around that same time, Lefty saying, "Who the fuck am I? Who am I? I'm a spoke on the wheel." And so was he. So are you. Yeah. And great delivery by Pacino. Marks the lowest point for Lefty's psyche because, like I said early on, he's kind of a guy who's trying to play power broker, trying to play like he has everything figured out. And at that point, he's just pretty much resigned to the fact that he's actually not that at all. He's just kind of a regular jamoke, similar to what he believes Donnie to be. So kind of sums up the whole dynamic of the movie.
Yep. And my last quote here comes kind of towards the beginning of the movie. Lefty is kind of explaining the mafia code to Donnie, kind of explaining the hierarchy. And he says, if I say you're a friend of mine, that means you're connected. But if I say you're a friend of ours, that means you're a made guy. And if I introduce you, I'm responsible for you. Anything wrong with you, I go down.
It's the only time that's really like explained in such simple terms, but it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that parallels to the Fugheddaboudit scene where, in turn, Donnie is explaining to these people who are unaware of the lingo, and really works out.
A lot of good syntax and linguistic talks in this movie, which you don't really get that in the other mobster stuff. It's just sort of all either assumed or they just kind of don't really care if the viewer doesn't know what they're looking at. I think they do a good job of explaining it without really pandering to the audience. It's just sort of more expository stuff between characters that need to hear it.
Yeah, and I think I might have mentioned this before, but that's what Quentin Tarantino loves so much about the movie Bull Durham, because he's not necessarily a baseball fan, but you go into the movie and you might not know about baseball, but they kind of talk to you like you're intelligent. And I think the same goes for this movie, where the Fugazi and the Fugheddaboudit, and it's stuff that you hear, maybe not in your everyday lexicon, but it's something that you are familiar with.
It's like when you watch Unstoppable and like all of a sudden 45 minutes in, you're like a train expert and you're like talking about siding and like engineering terms and all this stuff. It's a funny movie device that I think is done well in this one.
Yeah, that's how I feel with space movies all the time.
Yeah, exactly. They just make up their own rules with space movies, which is pretty sick, to be honest.
It's fine. Like Interstellar, probably.
Or in the desert.
or like, Gravity, maybe a better example.
Gravity is a good one too, but
Murph, pick up the watch.
God, I love it.
I got to rewatch that one. I got to get back into the.
I've only seen it once, and I was like, you know what, that was great. That's enough. I don't know if I need to revisit it, but maybe I will.
Yeah, I got to get back into some Nolan stuff to get me prepared for Tenet. But
how are we going to see that? Like,
yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I don't know. It's not available in streaming. Probably not going to go to a theater to see it. So I'm kind of perusing the internet a little bit for some streams, but so far no luck.
I want to pay money to watch.
I do as well.
I want to support the director. I want to do all that, but I can't really go to a theater right now. What are we doing here, Chris? Let's get this on to streaming. I'll pay $30 at least. I
was saying like $29.99. I'm in.
That's what fucking Mulan is going to be when it comes out on streaming.
That's insane. Who pay? I'm not paying for. Like, all respect to Kristen Maldonado, our guest. I'm sure she would pay that. Good for her. Not my cup of tea for $30, but I did pay like however much Staten Island, King of Staten Island was. I paid that. So did my friends, that it was hooked up to their roommates account. I think they asked her, but she was like, "What? Like $25 for a semi-shitty movie?" Yeah.
It was okay. It was good.
It was fine. It was just fine. Yeah. I think not one of my favorite Apatows, but I think Pete Davidson did the job. Nice little.
He did a pretty great job there, actually. pretty fucking funny. I mean, really honest. I'm just gonna smoke weed in my bedroom here.
Do you see the memes?
Come on, kid, walk down the street with me.
Do you see the memes of Pete Davidson? It's like what girls think Pete Davidson looks like versus what he actually looks like. It's great.
No, I gotta be honest. I didn't actually see it. For whatever reason, he's dating really hot, attractive women, which is good for him.
Bill
But
Burr,
he-
great in that movie. Loved it.
he actually really is good. Marissa Tomei too. Shout out to George Costanza. Great glow up for her in that as
Marissa
well.
Tomei.
Marissa Tomei.
Is that the? Oh no, I'm thinking of the episode with the waitress where he talks about manure. Different episode.
I think it's the one with the clock, maybe the alarm clock.
Okay.
I haven't gotten the Seinfeld episode off in a while.
We have to do that at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Got a lot of TV to get through here, but
Yep.
Any closing thoughts here on Donnie Brasco?
Yeah, a solid movie. I'm glad I picked it and watched it. Probably not going to be watching it again anytime soon, but just feels like a movie you probably should see if you're into the gangster genre.
Well, you can tell Kevin that you watched it and debrief a little bit.
He's probably listening to this.
Oh, hey Kevin, what's up, man? So I believe it is my turn to pick the next film.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with one of my favorite screenwriters. I'm 100% sure you've seen this movie before, but I haven't seen it in a quite a long while, so it's probably due worth a rewatch. This is by the screenwriter David Mamet, and it is Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, yes! That makes me so excited.
Yeah, this is, we figured we would wedge in the Tim Blake Nelson connection, so I'm going to do the Al Pacino connection.
Yes, you are. As we sit at this bar in a Chinese restaurant, inexplicably all day, I have a sales job that I do, but for some reason, I'm never actually doing it. He's just got low rasp to his voice.
It's great, dude.
Love that
it's
movie.
Great. I just love 90s Pacino.
So you haven't seen that in a while?
I have seen it. It's been a long while.
It's been a while. Yeah, I've probably watched it several times at this point, but it's been probably a couple of years since my last one. Love Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh yeah, coffee is for closes.
You can't close shit. You are shit. Every time we record, I'm gonna give that exact speech to you before we start recording.
I hope you do.
Just to fire you.
Yeah, kind of reminiscent of Full Metal Jacket a little bit there. But,
just a bit.
So definitely excited for that. I think we'll be doing Glengarry Glen Ross. Plan on doing season 3 of Fargo. And should be a good episode. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, bud. This was a fun one as well. I guess we're going to be wrapping up here, coming up on an hour and a half. Not quite there, but longer one and a lot of fun.
Yeah, as always. Check us out on Spotify, on iTunes. We're starting to get a little bit more listenership. Definitely growing in followers. If you want to look us up on Instagram or on Twitter, I believe, Jake, you can tell them where to go.
IG is That's a Bingo Podcast, all one word, no punctuation. On Twitter, you can find us at Bingo Pod. You can find me at Jake Luke, that's LOUQUE, and you can find Matt at mpine_, and that's Pine PYNE, not like Chris.
Don't forget it. Yeah, Chris Pine, my cousin. Yeah, stealing all my thunder, but it's cool. It's cool.
I was gonna say he definitely got the better end of that draw straw thing that you had going on there.
Oh yeah, for now. Yeah, for now.
Yeah, for now. I mean, we'll see what happens.
I don't think that chapter in that book's written yet, but yeah, he's doing pretty well for himself, I would say.
He's doing well. You're doing well. Why compare?
Yeah, exactly. Why compare Donnie Brasco and Goodfellas?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they're both just amazing in their own ways.
We can appreciate them both.
Exactly. Very diplomatic of you.
Absolutely. So
well, we really appreciate everyone listening. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, and if you, if you find a good old stream to Tenet, you can hit us up in our DMs, and we would appreciate it. We would rather pay for it, but you never know.
Maybe if you find a legal way to purchase it, hit us up.
That would be ideal. That would be the most ideal.
I like to support artists. I mean, I don't know about anyone else here, but
I feel like some fingers are getting pointed towards the side of the screen here, but
listen,
yeah.
I'm not pointing any fingers. Nobody has to take offense. I'm just saying I support artists.
Listen, I do as well. I definitely prefer the streaming platform versus the single purchase. But now that I found HBO Max, it's probably not a problem anymore. So
you don't have to get on like getyarn.com or whatever it is at this point and like get a million.
Getyarn.io. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
I know all of them. So
anything else?
That's all I got, buddy.
All right, bud. Well, like I said, it was a fun one. I already shouted out our social handles. Check out our guest at K Maldo. She was a very great first guest on the show. We're going to be obviously getting a lot more. Matt already kind of teased one in the interview. If you missed it, go back and listen and get excited because we are just getting going here. Really appreciate everyone listening. And until next time, have a great week.
Booyah.
Peace.